Now, on to the main topic for this town hall. I think, as we've said at the beginning, we're going to have an increased focus on training. So Jacques is going to cover earned value management and the principles behind that. This is a topic that's near and dear to his heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to hand the floor over to you, Jacques.
Oh, thanks, AJ. AJ, EVMS is near and dear to my heart. And as we go through today's presentation, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. My motto, if you don't ask me questions, I'll ask you questions. So, the intent of today's presentation is actually to just give you an introduction to what is earned value, because there's a lot of mystery around it and a lot of misconceptions around what it is. As we get into this, I wanted to kind of give you an idea of where earned value falls in the program lifecycle, because as AJ's mentioned in several presentations, that we work across the program lifecycle, and earned value is certainly a part of it. During the contract phase, after post award, earned value is actually has a big role in providing feedback to the government on where the contractor is, cost, schedule, technical, and the like. But there are roles for it during the proposal phase, because you have to bid. You have to bid your earned value systems. That's always a requirement in larger contracts, and it can be strategic in the sense that it gives you. It may allow a contractor to better position against the competitors if his competitors haven't already made that commitment. So, jumping into this. I wanted to talk a little bit about how long this has been around, and actually this timeline doesn't really do it justice. But I think I would say this is where the modern earned value methodology start. Because I think we could even trace this back even in modern days, as it were, to early 1900s with what GM called their flexible budgeting. And then into Henry Gantt. Scheduling is the foundation of earned value, and Gantt was invented what we call the Gantt charts today.
Right, and I don't know if you knew this, but Gantt and Peter F. Drucker actually knew each other.
Yes.
They spent quite a bit of time at Drucker's home.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
So the first part of this was actually developing the process, and even as I started my career, there were a lot of manual things. There's Gantt charts were still being initially developed on butcher paper on big pieces on walls, right? And then companies like Systematics, where I first went to work, developed, and PSDI and Artemis developed automated scheduling systems. Decker Limited, company that I started, and Primavera and others. Took that onto the PCs and micro platforms, and of course Microsoft Project and the like. And then we've gotten into a wide range of earned value management systems like Tracker, Cobra, Decision Edge, and so on. And one of the things that I think is interesting is that although really earned values focuses on process, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, it gets very much confused with software and reporting. And it's not intended to simply be a report that you create every month.
Right.
It's really about the process you use to manage your programs. So, as I said a minute ago, earned value really is the thing that integrates cost, schedule, and technical in terms of creating a conversation and a communication between the technical side of the program and the business side of the program, so that everybody's on the same page as to where we are. And although we talk a lot about earned value in terms of dollars, it's not a finance technique or capability. It's really a program management discipline. Earned value really breaks down into process, tools, and people, and we always look at it that way. And one of the things that I really that drew me into earned value very early on is the fact that I realized it was the only predictive discipline that we have as it relates to project management. We put together schedules that give us a model of how we're going to execute, and those models morph over time as we status. But what earned value allows us to do ultimately is be predictive. This is something I think that AJ, you'd find interesting as well. Right. Is there's a lot of metrics that look at the history to project what's going to happen in the future, right?
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to use some terms. I'm going to try to keep the alphabet soup out of this conversation, although earned value is probably one of the worst disciplines as it comes to alphabet soup, as we have acronyms for our acronyms, And then we weren't satisfied with that, so we renamed
Let
everything.
me think. BCWP. There's a whole soup of
BCWS,
ACWP.
yeah, ACWP, yeah.
ACWP. Oh
So,
boy, yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm going to try to avoid that, and if I
Okay.
don't, kick me. All right. So as I said, earned value is really about process, and it starts off with looking at organizing the work, so that you start off with how you're going to actually do program management, how you're going to manage the program. Then you plan the program. And the first thing, the foundation of all of earned value is the schedule. Then we resource load the schedule and develop our plan, and then from there we develop our cost. Because every hour has every person working has a rate, and then in addition to that, there's overhead costs and other things that get added on to get to a true cost for what the program is going to be. Work authorization is another key component of this. As programs get larger, keeping track of who's doing what and what things have been authorized to start is important, because you don't want to do things out of sequence, and you certainly don't want to do things that you're going to have to redo as other teams or elements of the program finish their efforts. So, there's a review and an authorized process, and then once work is authorized, the technical team, the engineers, whether it's engineering, manufacturing, et cetera, jump in and start doing their work.
Okay.
But what happens with the earned value pieces of it is we monitor it. So whether that's monitoring the number of drawings that have occurred, monitoring the number of lines of code, monitoring the number of widgets coming off of a production line, we basically monitor what was our plan against what we're actually accomplishing. And there is integration, we'll look at this a little later, of earned value as it relates to Agile, because again, as earned value has been able to continue morphing as management disciplines and approaches to managing technical efforts have changed. Each period you monitor, and then you make course corrections based on what's been accomplished and what you're predicting is going to happen. We talk a lot about risk, and as risk emerges, you have to implement mitigation plans. Those impact your projects, and it becomes basically a loop of organize, plan, approve, execute, and then review.
Replan.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, earned value.
That's an eye chart.
It is an eye chart, and actually, this is a chart from one of our solutions when we come in and do a gap assessment on or capabilities assessment of an earned value system.
Yeah.
What's going down the left edge are the 32 criteria that define the organization itself, or what we're measuring, the earned value criteria. Originally, there were 36 criteria, and they reduced it down to 32. But what's interesting about this is although earned value, is a program management function, it gets data from a lot of different places. It could be, for example, from Jira, which is
software
often,
development. Okay.
used as software or agile software development, even agile engineering. It gets data from the accounting system. It gets data from manufacturing, and it integrates that data based on the plan to be able to determine what's been accomplished and then what's left to be done. And the 32 criteria span across not only, again, the things I mentioned, organizing, authorizing, planning, costing, and so on, but it also, gets data from the 6 critical business systems. And as we've seen, particularly in proposals and post-award, the government has actually now started including what we call the business system clause. So in addition to what we call the ANSI 748, which is the earned value criteria, they include the 6 business systems, which is earned value accounting, contract management, cost estimating, procurement,
quality,
and manufacturing. Material management, actually. So those criteria span, and each of these 32 criteria span across the different attributes of the system. So what we're measuring is not whether or not you've got a piece of software that's generating a report in the right format, but rather, have you implemented a system that addresses the 32 criteria, and are you following the system that you documented?
Okay.
So as I, kind of talking a little bit further about what I said, there's a continuum, even in Agile, there's a continuum around where we plan our work, we plan our sprints, we plan our epics, and then we execute to those. Those get rolled into a schedule as to when they're going to happen. And the actual backlog and becomes your QBDs, the retirement of the backlog becomes your QBDs for measuring accomplishment in the schedule in an Agile sense. If you're talking about traditional waterfall, you're pulling data from maybe number of drawings completed and those types of measurements to determine where you are in the schedule. That data feeds directly into the two places. One is the accounting system to establish basically what your charge number is going to look like, your work breakdown structure and how you're going to charge against those tasks. And it feeds into the earned value management system, or we call the cost engine, to establish what your budget is, and then be able to measure against that budget. And from there, we actually then create the actual reportage, which are the C-drills that are derivative of the earned value management system itself. There are 7 C-drills that have to be produced every month in an once you start initiating earned value, and you also have to engage your customer in your change management. There are things that you can do to update ETCs, but if you're going to change budget, there's a whole process that has to be engaged to get customer approval on budget changes and the like. And the whole idea behind this is communication. Keeping everybody on the team and your customer informed as to where you are in executing the program. All right, so I'm going to give you some examples. Okay. We've talked a lot about earned value being a process, but to kind of boil it down as to, so what is this really helping us do? The first is that we think about this as both dollars and time, or hours and time. And as I said, the schedule is the first part of the plan. So you have your timeline of things, in this case a program, and the first thing you do is actually establish the budget for that program. We have the term BAC on here, which means budget at complete, and it's how you're actually going to perform this. What people, plant, and equipment you're going to use in order to accomplish the attributes of the project. As we move forward, we measure things in time.
Okay. And
we actually track the actual cost. So if you're talking about an engineer, they put a time card in. If you're talking about material, you've got procurement orders and invoices that come in and hit the accounting system and become part of those actuals. But we measure the costs that are being incurred against the program. So normally people think about it as budget and actuals. But when you get on a large program like this, you look at this chart and you say, well, we must be doing really well because we're spending less than what we budgeted.
Right. That's right. That green line below the other line.
It is. Yep. But I think the
and you're about to tell me that may not be the case.
Exactly. Okay. Yes, we don't know. Okay. And the reason we don't know is we don't know what got accomplished. So if we actually throw in what we call earned value, and I think this is where the earned value system gets confused, the software gets confused with the process. So I like to refer to this as our performance measurement. This is what we've accomplished. So what this is telling us is that we've actually produced less than what we planned, and we've spent more money to produce it than what we've planned because the red line is below the green line.
Okay.
Now, if the red line was above the green line, we would have produced less than we planned, but spent less than we intended. And if it's above the blue line, we're ahead of schedule, right?
Got it.
So we referred, and I threw some things in here to give, kind of some definitions around that.
You're ahead of schedule and under budget.
Right now?
If it was above.
If it's above, correct.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So we start looking at attributes of this and measuring the difference between the budget and the performance is what we consider a schedule variance. Think of schedules in this instance as like an accounting schedule. We had so many dollars planned to spend at this point. We've earned only some of those dollars based on what we've accomplished. We can also look at that in terms of time because if you look at where the amount of accomplishment should have occurred, it was in that first 10% of the project.
Yeah, based on our spend plan, right?
Based on our spend plan, we should have accomplished this in the first 10%.
Right.
We're now almost halfway through this project, and have only accomplished 10% of the work. And then we also have the notion of what we call cost variance, which is what I was talking about earlier, which is the difference between what we've accomplished and what we spent.
To accomplish that.
To accomplish that, right? So in this instance, we're spending more, to accomplish less.
Regardless of what the budget span plan was.
That's
Yep,
correct,
okay.
right? And so now here's where the power of earned value comes in, is it allows us to forecast, based on all this historical data, forecast where we're going to end up. And we do this at a very detailed level, which allows us to then start looking at ways to recover.
Okay.
And ways, whether it's do things in parallel, add more resources, and it becomes a trade-off could be a trade-off between make-buy, it could be a trade-off between spend a little more money to recover schedule.
So what does your forecast show here?
So our forecast is showing us that we are going to come in later than anticipated by the dashed line on the Gantt chart.
Because it's extending farther to the right than the spend plan. Okay.
Correct. And then we're also going to spend more money. So we're going to have an estimate at complete that's
above
higher.
that budget at complete. Okay,
Exactly.
got it.
And again, there's metrics that we use to manage
That
this.
describes most defense programs, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So
and home remodeling programs.
I lived through one of those. So the first delta is our variance at complete, our forecast slip, and in this instance, the program's still thinking they're gonna slow down the bleeding because their forecast is actually in the future is not as big as it is currently in terms of the schedule variance versus the at complete variance. And then we also have our at complete variance, which is the difference between the EAC and the BAC. So this is in essence what we do with the data that we collect in an earned value system. But the intent of the earned value system is to be the management system defining how we actually do programs.
So you're in this situation, whether it's your home remodel or a big major defense acquisition program. What do you do, Jacques?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to this is where the collaboration and communication come in. The earlier warning you can get on these things gives the program team opportunities to implement workarounds, to look at ensure they're not taking on work that's out of scope, right? And those types of attributes, and then work with the customer to do as much recovery as you can. So here's a quick example of how this works. When we look at data, we've got a project that has 200 drawings. It's going to take 10 months to complete. It takes 30 hours per drawing. We're going to spend $300,000, which is going to take us 6,000 hours to do at $50 an hour. So that's how we get to the 300. And we're going to expect to do 20 drawings a month. As we start taking status on this project, we're 100 drawings in, so we're 50% complete. We should be 50% complete. That's what was planned, right?
Okay.
But we're only at 70% at 70 drawings complete, and it took us 2,450 hours to complete this effort at a cost of $52 per hour.
A little bit above what you had budgeted. Okay.
Right. So we had to bring in some more senior people to help us recover from our impact, or because the complexities were beyond what we thought. Maybe we brought in one of SMA SMEs to help us out.
Okay.
Or one of our engineers.
Yeah.
Right. So if we start looking at so the question is, how are we doing? Right. We start looking at the data itself. What we're seeing is we've got a schedule variance and a cost variance, which is evident by the fact that we should be at 100 and we're at 70. So we have a 30 unit, cost variance or schedule variance, and we also have a cost variance because we're spending more money. But the thing that's interesting about this is the program team's in denial.
Okay.
Because if you look at the EAC, they're saying that their EAC is going to be exactly the same as their original budgeted plan. So they're telling everybody we're going to make it. We're going to make it up in the straightaway. We're going to. We're in the home stretch. We're actually going to recover. We've got a plan. But here's the reality of it. We have a technique that we call a TCPI, which is To Complete Performance Index. And what it allows us to do is look at, given where you are, how much more efficient do you have to get in order to meet your
EAC.
EAC.
Okay.
Exactly. So if you look at it, And we look at some of the other metrics that we have, what we're going to see is that we have a significant cost variance, we have a significant schedule variance, but our two complete index is telling us it's unobtainium. In order to recover this, we have to be at 113% efficiency. Right now, we're at 80% efficiency, right? Or 82% efficiency, if I recall correctly, because you said this is a bit of an eye chart.
We have to improve 25% in efficiency.
Right.
Okay.
And we're halfway through the program.
Got it.
There was a study done by Gary Crystal and for the Navy that looked at 30 years of programs, and what they determined was the first 15% of every program determined its pace and likely outcome in terms of impact as we get to the end. Very few programs actually were able to recover significantly after that first 15%. So
that's why you need milestone success and quick start.
That's right. That's right. And the reality, so here's the reality of what we would tell this program manager. You're going to recover this program when pigs fly.
Okay.
All right.
Unless you did the quick start and milestone success.
Well, but you have to do that before you start,
before
right?
you get to trouble.
Yeah, but at this point, you're going to have to have the hard conversations with your customer. You're going to be late and likely over cost. So we do have a process for implementing earned value. As I said, it focuses on a process like Compass. Our earned value implementation process is a 4-phase, 12-step process. In order to implement earned value, you got to take them through the denial and all those things, 12 steps. But what we start off, we review where they are, because most companies do have processes. Even small companies do accounting and things, and they have process for that. We leverage the good things they're doing. We augment the things where there's gaps, and then we help them correct things that would be considered non-compliant as we go through this. And there's a series of gates we go through to keep the customer informed as to where we are. And this kind of gives you a high-level overview of earned value and what it's about. But I think the key thing, key takeaways are that it's predictive and that it's not about software, because a fool with a tool is still a fool. It's all about the process and implementing process that's going to allow you to manage the programs in a way that fits the way you do business.
Cool. Particularly that finding around the first 15% kind of sets the. It's hard to recover after whatever's been set in stone after the first 15%. Wow.
And it's every program manager's dream to make it up on the follow-on contract, right?
All right. Did anyone? Is this your last slide?
It is.
Okay. Do anyone ask any questions in the chat? All right. Let's see. Come on up here, Lexi. Let's see what questions are asked.
Okay. So, what's the difference between 1X and 2? So that's a great question, and what Mike's asking.
It's 1X.
What Mike's actually asking about is, and I have to do this way.
All right, no one else found that funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, is this slide, and it really what the intent is it shows you where that particular criteria affects which either business systems or part of the earned value that it affects. So, some of the criteria actually affect more than one discipline.
Got it. So that's,
right?
Okay.
Let's see. Do you have any advice, ideas on how to convince clients that there's a significant difference between actually using it to manage versus using it to report data? That's probably one of the most perennial problems that we have in earned value, is that, again, most companies think of this as a check the box. We manage our programs the way we manage them. We report to the government the way we report to the government. This is not a report. And I think the biggest part of this is, and where I think earned value goes wrong, is if it's not implemented the way the company does business and it's not integrated into the way that they do business, it's going to fail. And I've gone in, and we have gone in and recovered a lot of failed attempts by teams who tried to make it a check the box activity.
So it's got to be, to a large degree, adapted to the culture of the business.
Absolutely. Okay. If they're doing agile, you've got to figure out how to integrate the agile attributes into your earned value system. It cannot be a standalone thing. And worse yet, one of the things I've always said is, when you work fixed price jobs, the margin's my money, right?
Yeah.
And if,
Yeah.
why would I want, it should apply to those, even though the government
Yeah.
says it's not a problem, because that's not their money.
That was a great question. So let me make sure I understand this. So is there sufficient flexibility in how we think about implementing earned value where we as a firm really know how to adapt earned value to a client's culture and business?
Absolutely.
And how does that contrast to some of our competitors in the same business?
Yeah, so a lot of our competitors walk in with a pre-canned, Z-best, system description and process,
Okay.
and then they try to tailor it. And it's just like we tell people with proposals, it'd be ridiculous for Northrop to take a Lockheed proposal and try to tailor it for the next
Right.
aircraft competition. Why would you take somebody else's system description and tailor it in order to describe how you're going to do business?
Cool.
Right.
Cool.
We actually design the system
Right.
to fit the way they do
Doing
business.
Great. So the answer really is it's upon us to adapt the system.
That's right.
So that the business and program managers use it. I think Lexi has another question for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I had one more still from
Okay.
before. So Dick says, I didn't see cost schedule control system criteria. Yes, C squared or CSCSC in your history charts. It was, certainly was a precursor. And Dick, you're 100% right. I got inspired to do that chart from a picture that AJ has hanging on the wall and in one of the conference rooms here on the history of rock and roll. And very much like that chart, the earned value chart is going to be quite complex. What I really started off doing was looking at some of the things that I think are, milestones. And CSC was the first, was certainly a milestone. So good catch there, Dick. And then Claudia asked, so how does management systems account for the value that is earned in large steps rather than continuous advancements? For example, when a technical system is being built and then other steps follow at a faster rate. Hey, it's your plan. Plan the work the way you're going to accomplish it, and your variances will be variances based upon true impacts. Whereas if you have a bad plan, you're gonna get bad information. Garbage in, garbage out.
Wow, lots of questions coming in. I guess everyone wants to avoid you asking the audience questions.
That's right. So what demand are we seeing for earned value help? A lot of demand. The government, and it moves from administration to administration as to how much of an effort they put on this in the current administration. Getting quality data from contractors is is an important criteria, and we're seeing a lot of contracts that require the implementation of earned value. In fact, they've taken it even further and actually require you to be validated on the 6 business systems. The accounting was obvious because DCAA comes in and ensures you're doing all the right things from an accounting perspective. DCMA comes in and looks at your earned value system. But the government's now coming in and looking at the other 6 business systems to avoid big failures like we've seen in a number of programs.
Makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Jacques. That was fascinating. I think I've actually have learned quite a bit now. I understand it a lot better, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad. As I said, I could talk about this for hours.
You can, yes.
But the real thing about it all is that it's your management system, and it should be implemented in a way that works for your business.
Yeah.